Hello everyone, welcome everyone to the channel's Strange Night Podcast. Story 1, The Bloody Highway. If you look at a map of West Milford, New Jersey, Clinton Road appears to be nothing more than a 10-mile stretch of asphalt winding through dense, ancient woods. But for decades, this has been a place that even local police are wary of patrolling at night. People say that Clinton Road is not just a road, it is a living entity where the shadows are always looking for a way to swallow the curious. The most chilling symbol of this road is found at Dead Man's Curve, specifically at the bridge crossing the reservoir. Legend has it that a young boy died here while trying to retrieve a coin from the stream. If you visit at midnight, try tossing a coin into the rushing waters below the bridge, then stand and wait. Seconds later, that same coin will be tossed back at your feet or found neatly placed on the yellow line behind your back. Braver souls claim that if you stare too long into the water, you will see a pale face beneath the surface, slowly reaching up to pull you into the depths. But Clinton Road is home to more than just lost spirits. It is also a graveyard for cold-blooded crimes. In 1983, a cyclist discovered a body being scavenged by vultures along the roadside. The subsequent autopsy shocked the world of forensics. The victim's heart was still frozen, while the rest of the body had begun to decay. This discovery led to the capture of Richard Kuklinski, the notorious mafia hitman known as the Iceman. He chose Clinton Road as his dumping ground because of its absolute isolation and an atmosphere so oppressive that people instinctively avoided looking into the bushes. Night drivers on this road frequently report a terrifying phenomenon: the ghost truck. While driving through the pitch-black darkness, a pair of massive headlights will suddenly ignite inches from your rear bumper. It chases you with frantic speed, blaring its horn and attempting to run you off the road. But the moment you reach a straight stretch, or the glow of streetlights appears, the truck vanishes into thin air. No sound, no trace, and nothing in your rearview mirror. The horror doesn't end there. Near the road lie the ruins of Cross Castle. Local residents believe this was once a site where secret societies and dark cults performed sacrificial rituals under the full moon. Those who have wandered off the path recount seeing cloaked figures moving between the trees, and strange symbols appearing and disappearing on tree trunks, as if carved by an invisible hand in real time. Driving on Clinton Road brings a strange sense of suffocation. Car radios often succumb to static, filled with rhythmic hissing that sounds like the whispers of 100 voices. There are sections of the road where your headlights seem to be swallowed by the dark, unable to pierce more than a few feet ahead. The ghosts here do not just stand still. They seem to be waiting for someone to slip up, to stop and check a tire, or to rest, only to become another entry in the long list of unsolved missing persons cases. The advice from those who have survived their nights on Clinton Road is simple. No matter what you see on the pavement or what sounds knock against your window, never stop. Keep driving until the town lights appear, and whatever you do, do not look in the rearview mirror. Because on Clinton Road, the thing chasing you might not be a truck. It might be a shadow from the past, trying to pull you into its eternal void. Story 2, The Ghosts of Mansfield Reformatory. If you are a fan of cinema, you will recognize these grim gray stone walls and rows of cold iron bars from the classic film The Shawshank Redemption. But for the actual inmates confined within the Ohio State Reformatory, Mansfield, between 1896 and 1990, This was no movie set. It was a living hell. Mansfield was originally designed with a humanitarian purpose, to help young offenders find their way back to a righteous path through religion and education. However, the reality was the exact opposite. Overcrowding, gang violence, and the brutal punishments of the guards turned this place into a soul-crushing machine. Throughout its nearly a century of operation, hundreds died within these walls due to disease, suicide, or brutal murder. The most haunted area of Mansfield is undoubtedly the Hole, the solitary confinement wing. Here, inmates who broke the rules were locked in cramped, pitch-black cells with no sanitation and were frequently starved. Survivors recounted having to battle rats and their own descending madness. Today, when psychics enter this area, they report a thick, suffocating energy of pure malice. Specialized electronic voice phenomenon, EVP, devices frequently capture screams, the slamming of iron doors, and desperate whispers, "Let me out." One famous spirit here is Mrs. Helen Glatke, the wife of Warden Arthur Glatke. In 1950, in a freak accident, Helen accidentally knocked a handgun off a shelf in her closet, causing it to discharge and strike her. Since then, many witnesses and museum staff claim to have smelled the faint scent of roses, Helen's favorite perfume, in the warden's residence. Occasionally, the figure of an elegantly dressed woman is seen standing silently by the window, looking down at the prison yard where the ghosts of inmates still linger in the shadows. But not all spirits at Mansfield are as gentle as Mrs. Glatke. In the basement, near the old boiler system, people often see the apparition of a massive man with eyes that seem to glow with fire. Records suggest this was an inmate who committed suicide by self-immolation in the furnace. Maintenance workers down there have been shoved, had tools thrown at them, or heard threatening growls emanating from the depths of the dark pipes. The most terrifying experience reported by visitors is the mysterious scratches. There are dozens of reports of tourists who, while walking through the halls, suddenly feel a burning sensation on their backs or arms. Upon checking, they find long red welts, as if an invisible hand with sharp claws had just raked across their skin. The spirits at Mansfield don't just want you to know they exist. They want you to feel the pain they once endured. Today, the Mansfield Reformatory is closed as a prison and operates as a museum. But at night, once the tourists' flashes are turned off and the heavy iron doors are locked, the prison truly wakes up. The sound of guards' boots clicking on stone floors, the rattling of chains in empty corridors, and shadows darting between cell blocks provide a chilling answer to the question, is death the ultimate escape from Mansfield? If you plan on joining a ghost tour here, remember, never wander off from the group, because among those thousands of empty cells, there are entities still looking for a new cellmate to share their eternal solitude in the darkness of Ohio. Story 3. The Mystery of the Skirvin Hotel. The Skirvin Hilton Hotel in Oklahoma City is a beacon of luxury, boasting magnificent Gothic architecture. But behind its polished marble halls and shimmering crystal chandeliers lies a dark secret that has endured for over a century. This grand hotel doesn't just host politicians and the elite. It is also the permanent home of a resentful spirit known as Effie. Legend has it that in the 1930s, the hotel's owner, W.B. Skirvin, had an illicit affair with a young maid named Effie. When Effie became pregnant, Skirvin, desperate to avoid a scandal that could ruin his reputation, locked her in a small room on the 10th floor. Effie was kept a prisoner, cut off from the outside world even after her child was born. Driven to madness by isolation and abandonment, Effie eventually grabbed her infant and jumped from the 10th floor window, ending both their lives on the cold asphalt below. Since then, the 10th floor of the Skirvin Hotel has become the epicenter of inexplicable phenomena. But what brought the Skirvin global notoriety wasn't just folklore. It was the testimony of some of the most practical witnesses on Earth, NBA superstars. In 2010, the New York Knicks suffered a loss and famously blamed the ghosts. Player Eddie Curry recounted that he couldn't sleep a wink because he felt someone watching him intently from the darkness. In 2016, Los Angeles Lakers star Lou Williams refused to stay at the hotel entirely, paying out of his own pocket for other accommodations because he was so terrified by the strange noises in his room. Players frequently report bathroom doors opening and closing on their own, the sound of a baby crying hysterically in the hallways despite no families being present, and furniture being mysteriously rearranged while they are away at practice. Some claim to have heard a woman's voice whispering directly into their ear while lying in bed, only to find the room completely empty when they turned on the lights. Effie seems to have a particular preference for men. Male staff members report being teased by invisible hands or seeing the reflection of a naked woman flitting across the bathroom mirror while they are cleaning. Some believe Effie's soul is still searching for the man who betrayed her, or perhaps she is simply venting her rage on any man who dares enter her territory. Beyond the sights and sounds, the Skirvin Hotel carries an indescribable weight. Many guests report a sudden, overwhelming sense of profound sadness and loneliness the moment they step onto the 10th floor. It is the lingering pain of a mother stripped of her freedom and her future, a sorrow that has seeped into the very wood and brick of the building. Today, the Skirvin remains a top-tier destination, but the stories of Effie have become an inseparable part of its identity. Every time an NBA team visits Oklahoma City, they must prepare for a different kind of game, a confrontation with the unseen forces at the Skirvin. If you ever have the chance to stay here, especially on the 10th floor, listen closely. If you hear a child crying in the dead of night, or feel a cold hand brush against your shoulder, remember, Effie is still there, pacing the luxury corridors, forever trapped in the room where her life was stolen. Story 4. The Curse of the Mothman. In 1966, in the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the peaceful lives of its residents were completely upended by the arrival of a creature that did not belong to this world. It wasn't a bird, and it wasn't a man. Witnesses described it as over 7 feet tall, with a massive wingspan reaching 10 feet, and most terrifyingly, 2 glowing red eyes like burning coals that emitted a light both mesmerizing and horrifying. The world came to know it as the Mothman. The first encounter took place on the night of November 15th, 1966. 2 young couples were driving past an abandoned World War II explosives manufacturing site known as the TNT area. They spotted a creature standing by the road. When they panicked and accelerated to over 100 miles per hour to escape, the creature spread its wings and chased their car effortlessly without even flapping, emitting a high-pitched screech like an electric motor. For the next 13 months, fear gripped Point Pleasant. Hundreds of Mothman sightings were reported, but accompanying this creature were even stranger phenomena. Unidentified flying objects, UFOs, appearing in the sky, and visits from the Men in Black, pale-skinned strangers in black suits who interrogated witnesses and warned them never to speak of what they had seen. Many residents began having vivid nightmares of a looming catastrophe. And then, on December 15th, 1967, that dark prophecy became a reality. During the afternoon rush hour, the Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Ohio, suddenly shuddered and collapsed into the freezing Ohio River in a matter of seconds. 46 people lost their lives. Eerily, just before the collapse, several people swore they saw the Mothman perched high atop the bridge's towers, watching the traffic below with its glowing red eyes. Following the Silver Bridge disaster, the Mothman abruptly vanished from Point Pleasant, as if its mission had been completed. Since then, a decades-long debate has raged. Was the Mothman a malevolent monster that caused the accident? Or was it an interdimensional entity that appeared only to warn humanity of an unavoidable tragedy? The haunt and legacy of the Mothman doesn't end there. Reports of a similar creature surfaced just before the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986 and prior to the 9/11 attacks in New York. Wherever this massive dark shadow with red eyes appears, blood and tears inevitably follow. Today, in the center of Point Pleasant, a bronze statue of the Mothman stands as a reminder of those terrifying events. The town is peaceful now, but as dusk falls over the Ohio River, locals still feel a shiver when looking up at the old trees or high structures. The Mothman serves as a chilling reminder. There are things that exist on the fringes of our reality. They do not intervene, and they do not help. They appear only as messengers of death. And if one day you see a pair of glowing red eyes staring at you from the darkness, prepare yourself, because something terrible is likely about to begin. Story 5. The Dead House in Connecticut. In 1986, the Snedeker family moved from New York to Southington, Connecticut, to be closer to the hospital where their eldest son, Philip, was undergoing treatment for cancer. They rented a large old house at a surprisingly low price, unaware that this bargain would thrust them into a nightmare with no escape. Shortly after moving in, they discovered a horrifying truth in the basement. Body trays, embalming tools, and photographs of the deceased hidden away. For decades, this house had operated as a funeral home. But worse than that were the rumors that former mortuary workers had engaged in occult practices and necrophilia on the premises, leaving behind a dark energy that saturated the very walls. Philip, weakened by his illness, was the first to sense the demonic presence. He began seeing apparitions with distorted faces and hearing whispers urging him towards suicide. Initially, the family dismissed these as side effects of his medication, but soon, everyone became a target. Philip's mother, Carmen, recounted that bathwater would suddenly turn into thick red blood and emit the stench of rotting flesh. Furniture moved on its own, and violent banging echoed from empty rooms. The haunting culminated in physical assaults. Family members were slapped by invisible hands, dragged across the floor, and some even claimed to have been sexually violated by the malevolent entities. Desperate, the Snedekers reached out to the world-renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Upon entering the house, Lorraine immediately felt an overwhelming sense of malice. She claimed that the former mortuary workers had opened a door to the demonic through dark rituals, and now those entities refused to leave. They were feeding on the life energy of the Snedeker family, especially Philip. A massive exorcism was performed by the Catholic Church. Priests reported that during the ritual, the air inside the house grew so thick and cold it felt like ice, while guttural growls erupted from beneath the floorboards, shaking the entire structure. After hours of prayer and cleansing, the darkness finally seemed to retreat. The Snedeker story raises a chilling question. Do houses truly remember what has happened inside them? Or do the sinful actions of humans unintentionally create a beacon that attracts dark things from the abyss? Today, the house in Southington still stands. It has passed through many owners and has been extensively renovated. The current residents claim to have experienced nothing unusual, but for those who know its history, the house remains a symbol of pure terror. If you are looking for a new home and find a price that seems too good to be true, be careful. Investigate its past thoroughly. Because sometimes, you aren't just buying bricks and wood, you are inviting the former residents into your life. And once they accept that invitation, the price you pay might be your very soul. Story 6. The Black-Eyed Children. Imagine sitting alone in your living room late at night, or perhaps parked in a deserted lot. Suddenly, there is a soft but persistent knock on your window. You look out to see two children, aged anywhere from 6 to 16, wearing dark hoodies with unnaturally pale skin. They don't look directly at you, but they plead desperately to be let in to make a phone call or find their mother. Do not open the door, because if you look closely into their eyes, you will see a bottomless void. No white, no iris, just a solid, pitch-black ink. These are the BEK, Black-Eyed Kids. The phenomenon exploded in 1996 when journalist Brian Bethel reported a terrifying encounter in Abilene, Texas. Two children approached his car and asked for a ride. Bethel recounted that the moment he looked into their coal-black eyes, a primal fear, the feeling of a prey in the presence of a predator, consumed his entire body. He floored the accelerator the second one of the children snarled, "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay." There is an unshakable rule in every report regarding BEK. They require permission. They cannot enter your home or your car of their own volatile will. They use a form of psychic pressure, making you feel intense guilt or confusion, just to force you to utter the words of invitation. Those who have mistakenly let them in recount catastrophic consequences. A woman in Vermont reported that after letting two black-eyed children in for a glass of water, her husband developed a rare, aggressive cancer and died within months. She herself felt constantly watched, and her health deteriorated without explanation. These children aren't just ghosts. They behave like energy vampires, or demonic entities masquerading as children to exploit human compassion. Their origin remains a massive question mark. Some believe they are alien-human hybrids. Others are convinced they are demonic because of their specific aversion to religious symbols and their inability to cross a threshold without an invitation, a trait that mirrors ancient legends of vampires and devils. Whatever they are, sightings are increasing worldwide, from the remote countryside of England to modern apartment complexes in the United States. They carry no weapons, but those black eyes are the most terrifying weapon of all. They strip away your peace and, potentially, your life. The story of the black-eyed children is a warning about vigilance in the modern world. Kindness is a virtue, but sometimes it is the very key that unlocks the door for hell to walk through. If there is a knock tonight, and you see children standing in the shadows with hoods obscuring their faces, remember, do not look into their eyes. Do not listen to their pleas. And most importantly, never let them in. Story 7. The Honey Island Swamp Monster. Deep within the Honey Island Swamp of Louisiana, where ancient cypress trees cast long shadows over black stagnant water and a thick mist clings to the surface year-round, exists a creature that is the ultimate fear of local hunters. They call it the Honey Island Swamp Monster, an entity that dwells on the razor's edge between man and beast. The legend gained widespread attention in 1963 when Harlan Ford, a former air traffic controller and seasoned hunter, ventured with a friend into a remote part of the swamp where few humans dared to go. They found something that science could not explain. Massive, three-toed footprints with webbing pressed deep into the mud. But that was only the beginning. Years later, Harlan came face to face with the creature. He described it as standing about 7 feet tall, weighing over 400 pounds, and covered in a coat of dingy gray hair. It radiated an overwhelming stench, the smell of rotting flesh and stagnant water. The most terrifying feature was its amber eyes, which glowed in the dark and stared back with a primal, predatory ferocity. Local folklore offers a strange origin story. It is said that in the early 20th century, a circus train derailed near the edge of the swamp. Chimpanzees that escaped supposedly interbred with local alligators through an ancient curse of the land, creating a deformed hybrid. While this theory sounds like a tall tale, the physical evidence found in the swamp is very real. In 1974, Harlan Ford captured a brief, grainy Super 8 film showing a large, hulking creature moving through the dense underbrush. To this day, this footage remains one of the most controversial pieces of evidence in cryptozoology. Unlike the elusive Bigfoot of the high mountains, the Honey Island monster is reported to be extremely aggressive. Hunters often find the carcasses of wild boars or livestock torn apart with savage strength, their heads completely twisted off, a feat of power far beyond any known predator in North America. Kayakers at night report hearing long, piercing shrieks echoing across the water, followed by a violent splashing as if something massive is pursuing them just behind the hull of their boat. In the eerie stillness of Honey Island, you can never shake the feeling of being watched from behind the veil of Spanish moss. There is a chilling truth. Within this 28,000-acre wilderness, there are pockets of swamp that humans have never reached. This is a kingdom of shadows where the Honey Island monster reigns supreme. It serves as a reminder that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, there are still lands where we are merely fragile intruders, and the true masters of the marsh do not welcome company. If you ever take a boat tour in Louisiana, keep your hands inside the boat and don't stare too long into the misty thickets, because that sudden stench on the wind might not be the mud. It might be the breath of a creature waiting to pull you down into the deep, black waters of Honey Island. Story 8. Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Perched on an isolated hilltop in Louisville, Kentucky, this massive red brick Gothic structure was once the only hope for thousands of tuberculosis patients in the early 20th century. But in an era before antibiotics, Waverly Hills became a final destination before death. It is estimated that over 63,000 people took their last breaths within these walls under agonizing conditions. Every corner of this hospital is stained with mourning, but one place stands as the ultimate symbol of horror: the death tunnel. This is a 500-foot-long chute that runs from the hospital to the base of the hill. To prevent living patients from panicking at the sight of the staggering daily death toll, doctors used this tunnel to secretly transport corpses away. Today, those brave enough to enter the tunnel report bone-chilling cold spots, the sound of sprinting footsteps, and the sensation of skeletal hands brushing against their backs in the dark. One of the most famous residents of the afterlife here is the nurse of room 502. Legend has it that in 1928, the young nurse was found hanging from the ceiling in this very room. She had suffered a double tragedy: an unplanned pregnancy and a tuberculosis diagnosis. Visitors often claim that upon entering room 502, they are overcome by a suffocating sense of despair and occasionally hear a woman's voice whispering, "Get out." On the lower floors, people often encounter Timmy. Unlike the resentful spirits, Timmy is the soul of a child who just wants to play. Paranormal investigators frequently leave small balls on the corridor floors. Seconds later, these balls begin to roll forward or bounce as if someone is playing catch, despite the floors being perfectly level. But Waverly Hills is home to more than just human spirits. Professional ghost hunters have captured footage of shadow people, inky black, shapeless entities that crawl across ceilings or dart through hallways at impossible speeds. They do not seem like the souls of the dead, but rather like spiritual parasites, feeding on the fear of anyone who dares to enter. In 1961, the hospital closed and was converted into a geriatric facility where reports of horrific patient abuse surfaced, adding even more layers of darkness to its history. The screams heard echoing in the dead of night aren't just the wind. They are the echoes of terror, still vibrating within the very bricks. Today, Waverly Hills is open for paranormal tours, but there is an unspoken rule. Never provoke the spirits here. Because in a building with thousands of empty rooms, you are never truly alone. Eyes from the past are watching you from shattered windows. And sometimes, one of them might decide to follow you home. Story 9. The Mystery of the Goat Man. In the town of Denton, Texas, there's an old iron bridge spanning Hickory Creek, officially named the Old Alton Bridge. But locals have long referred to it by a more haunting name, Goat Man's Bridge. This is not just an ancient architectural relic. It is the dwelling place of a vengeful spirit, ready to strike anyone who dares to challenge it. The bridge's gruesome origin dates back to 1938. Oscar Washburn was a successful black goat farmer, beloved by his community and known by the nickname Goat Man. However, his success sparked envy and extreme racial hatred within the local Ku Klux Klan. One night, masked Klansmen kidnapped Washburn, dragged him to the Old Alton Bridge, tied a noose around his neck, and threw him over the side. But when the killers looked down to witness the death of their victim, they were struck with sheer terror. The rope was there, but Washburn's body had vanished without a trace. In a panicked frenzy, they ran to Washburn's home and set it ablaze, killing his entire family. Since that night, it is believed that Oscar Washburn made a deal with the devil for revenge, transforming into a violent, half-man, half-goat entity. Countless reports of bizarre phenomena have surfaced here. Drivers crossing the bridge at night often see a pair of glowing yellow eyes piercing through the darkness of the surrounding woods. If you turn off your headlights and honk your horn 3 times, it is said you will hear the rhythmic thud of hooves pounding on the iron bridge and feel a breath smelling of sulfur right behind your neck. In 2017, the famous paranormal show Ghost Adventures investigated the site. Lead investigator Zach Bagans was reportedly choked and pushed by an unseen force, while audio equipment captured sounds ranging from animalistic growls to distorted human voices. Unlike typical ghosts, the Goat Man is regarded as an extremely physical and violent entity. Brave visitors often return with scratches, bruises, or the lingering feeling of being stalked by something massive and dark. The forest surrounding the bridge is also a hot spot for occult activity. Sacrifice remains and strange stone circles have been discovered there. It seems Washburn's resentment opened a portal for other dark entities to take refuge. The atmosphere is so heavy that even birds are said to stop singing when flying over the bridge. He advised for anyone wishing to explore Goatman's Bridge is simple. Never go alone, and leave before the sun sets completely. Because once darkness falls, that old iron path no longer belongs to the living. It is the Goatman's domain, and he is still waiting to collect the blood debt from decades ago. If you hear a bleat echoing through the mist, do not go searching for its source. It isn't a lost goat. It is the lure of a monster trying to pull you into the permanent shadow beneath the old Alton Bridge. Story 10. The Theater of Souls. Located in Canton, Ohio, the Palace Theater is an architectural masterpiece built in 1926. With a ceiling designed to mimic a star-filled night sky and intricate carvings throughout, it was once the most lavish entertainment hub in the region. However, behind the heavy crimson velvet curtains and the echoes of thunderous applause, there are audiences and performers who have never checked out. The most famous spirit here is known as the Man in the Suit. Many stagehands and actors have reported seeing a man dressed in an elegant 1930s-style suit, sitting silently in a VIP box or standing watch from the wings. He never speaks. He simply stands there, staring intently at the stage with a stern expression. Whenever someone approaches to speak to him, he vanishes into thin air like a wisp of smoke. But the Palace Theater holds more than just one ghost. The backstage basement is a place that makes even the bravest souls shiver. Actors recount stories of preparing in their dressing rooms, only to hear script lines whispered directly into their ears when the room is completely empty. Some have felt a cold hand rest on their shoulder, a gesture that feels like a word of encouragement or a warning. Another frequent phenomenon is the music from nowhere. Late at night, long after the theater is closed and the instruments have been locked away, security guards still hear the piano echoing from the orchestra pit. The melodies are often mournful and lingering, drifting through the hollow auditorium. When they go to investigate, the piano lid is shut tight, yet the stool remains warm, as if someone had just been sitting there. Most haunting is the legend of the spirit of the songstress. It is said that a young performer died suddenly just before her debut show. Since then, on nights of the full moon, some swear they have heard a soaring, crystal-clear operatic voice echoing from the theater's dome. The singing is so filled with raw emotion, both beautiful and tragic, that it moves listeners to tears without them knowing why. Why do these spirits choose to stay? Some psychics believe that the intense energy from decades of audience laughter and performers' adrenaline has created a powerful psychic imprint. The Palace Theater acts like a giant recorder, playing back the most glorious and tragic moments of those who were tethered to its stage. Today, the Palace Theater remains active and is a vital cultural landmark, but the actors have a specific ritual before going on stage. They often bow toward the empty seats or leave a single rose in the wings as a mark of respect for their colleagues from the other side. As we conclude this 20-episode journey, we realize one thing: haunted lands and ghost-filled houses are more than just places of terror. They are vessels of history, holding the pains and the unfinished dreams of humanity. If you ever find yourself at a play and notice a man in vintage clothing sitting next to you in the shadows, don't panic. Just enjoy the show, for he has likely been waiting for this performance for over a century. Thank you for listening to this series. Please like and subscribe to the channel to hear the next series.